Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating piece of source material. What we're looking at is essentially a highly detailed creative blueprint. It's a comprehensive video prompt designed to construct this massive, cinematic, mythological dialogue scene inspired by the epic Mahabharata. We're going to explore how this source brilliantly bridges two completely distinct worlds. On one hand, you have the profound, ancient philosophy of Dharma, karma, and truth. And on the other, the meticulous, highly technical modern art of epic cinematic direction. It is, literally, a masterclass in how to visually and emotionally communicate ancient wisdom.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with setting the stage, then move right into the human dilemma. From there, we'll explore the philosophy of action, followed by mastering the inner self, and finally, we'll wrap up by unpacking the cinematic vision. So it's a dual-track journey today, deep spiritual teachings on one side and epic cinematic visuals on the other.
All right, let's jump into section 1, setting the stage. Now, before a single word of wisdom is even spoken, you've got to establish the environment, right? The physical space really has to mirror the heavy spiritual weight of the conversation. So, the scene is anchored in an environment inspired by ancient Hastinapura. The prompt explicitly demands a setting that feels majestic and deeply spiritual. But here is the crucial part. The source insists on strict character continuity. Sanjaya has to be seated respectfully, listening with this deep concentration and humility. And Lord Krishna, he must appear entirely calm, compassionate, wise, and radiant, dressed in traditional royal garments with a really subtle peacock feather crown. That visual consistency between these two figures is the absolute anchor for the entire philosophical exchange.
What is absolutely incredible here is the sheer level of sensory detail the prompt provides to build this world. It's not just about pointing a camera, it's about creating a tangible feeling. Imagine warm, golden, divine lighting hitting ancient stone architecture. The director is instructed to include a gentle wind, glowing oil lamps, and a subtle celestial aura around Krishna. There's even a specific call for floating dust particles illuminated by the golden sunlight. I mean, these aren't just background details, they are atmospheric visual cues meticulously designed to instantly pull you out of your daily life and drop you right into this divine, timeless space.
Which brings us to part 2, the human dilemma. So with that incredible atmosphere locked in, the core conflict hits us through Sanjaya. He brings the sheer chaotic weight of the battlefield directly to Krishna, speaking of the inner conflict rising within humanity, things like attachment, fear, and duty. And then he asks the ultimate question: how does one choose between duty and attachment? I want you to really ponder that for a second, because let's be honest, this isn't just an ancient battlefield problem. This is a wildly universal human struggle. We literally all face this friction every day, that tug of war between what we know we must do and what our emotions or desires are pulling us toward. Moving right along to section 3, philosophy of action.
So how does Krishna answer this profound question? Well, he remains completely, unshakably calm. He begins by explaining that humanity's biggest struggle isn't against the external world at all, it's actually a battle with our own minds. He then recites a famous shloka from the Bhagavad Gita. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Just take a moment to let the gravity of that statement really land. It's powerful. And the source material specifically dictates that this has to be delivered in authentic Sanskrit in the audio, while the text appears elegantly on screen with a simple, profound Hindi explanation right below it.
So, the crucial point here is the absolute hard-line separation of these two concepts. On one side, we have the right to action. That's our duty. On the other side, the fruits of action, the results or the rewards. Krishna is instructing that when a person performs their duty, completely detached from the desire for the result, well, their actions no longer bind them. You absolutely must not make the reward your primary motive. But equally, you can't fall into the trap of doing nothing at all. You act simply because it is the right thing to do. That leads us perfectly into section 4, mastering the inner self.
But come on, human nature pushes back, doesn't it? Sanjaya is basically representing us, the audience, in this moment, and he respectfully challenges Krishna with a completely logical follow-up question. If a person does not want the fruits of their actions, how do they stay motivated? It's a brilliant, incredibly practical doubt. Think about it. If I'm entirely detached from the results of my labor, why on earth should I work hard? Where does the drive actually come from if there is no prize waiting at the finish line?
Now, the source prompt actually dictates that at this very moment, Krishna smiles a gentle smile. He isn't angered by the challenge at all. He welcomes it. He answers that true motivation is born not from the result, but from the purity of the duty itself.
He then delivers a second major sloka. The English translation reads, "Elevate yourself through the power of your mind. The mind can be the friend and also the enemy of the self." This is a profoundly powerful teaching about absolute self-reliance. He's essentially saying that the person who conquers their own mind is the one who truly begins to understand the world.
And this brilliantly illustrates the whole duality of our internal world. On one hand, the self as a friend. On the other, the self as an enemy. Krishna's point is that you have to uplift yourself through your own sheer effort. If you master your mind, it becomes your absolute best friend, driving your motivation through pure duty. But if you let your mind rule you, if you're constantly driven by desires and hungry for results, it quickly becomes your own worst enemy, ultimately leading to your downfall.
Finally, let's jump into Section 5, Cinematic Vision.
So, the philosophical dialogue is obviously immense. But how exactly does the source prompt instruct a director to actually film these massive concepts? Well, the prompt lays out really specific sequential camera directions. Let's see how this builds. Step 1. You begin with a wide cinematic shot of the ancient royal surroundings, just to establish the grand scale. Step 2. The camera slowly pushes towards Sanjaya as he asks his question, capturing all of his vulnerability. Step 3. A cut to a peaceful close-up of Krishna to really emphasize his divine calm. And Step 4. This is crucial. During each Sanskrit shloka, the camera slowly zooms toward Krishna. The visual pacing is meticulously engineered to perfectly match the emotional and philosophical depth of the dialogue.
To really polish off this cinematic experience, the prompt demands a few vital finishing touches. We touched on the text treatment earlier, right? Sanskrit elegantly on screen with the simple Hindi meaning right below it, making sure that wisdom is visually processed by the audience. The director also has to focus heavily on detailed facial expressions to convey that unspoken emotional resonance between the characters. And to tie the whole shebang together, the soundscape must feature soft, spiritual background music. It specifically calls for traditional Indian instruments, the bansuri flute, the veena, and the tanpura. That ensures the tone remains deeply spiritual, philosophical, and incredibly respectful of the Mahabharata.
The whole scene is actually meant to end with a peaceful wide shot, slowly pulling backward to reveal that vast spiritual atmosphere one last time, leaving the viewer with a profound sense of scale. Which perfectly leaves us with one final thought to close out today's explainer. I want you to take this ancient wisdom and try applying it to your life today. Are your actions driven by the purity of duty or just the desire for the result? Think about that as you go about your day. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.